Well, we should always count our blessings. Last week in the message, I was going over all the various things that are coming up for us as the end of the school year is approaching and all the various school activities that are jam-packed all in a 3 to 4 week window. And then I was reminded from a friend of mine on social media this week that it could be worse because my oldest son could have been in band this year. And luckily, we helped convince him that is not something that he wanted to do. Not that if he was independently wanting to pursue music that we would have stopped him, but it really wasn't on his radar, and then he was thinking about maybe joining the band. And then I was just having a flashback to every middle school band concert I had to go to when I was a student pastor. And if I never have to relive that experience, I'm good. And so I was like, are you sure you want to do band? And ultimately, he decided that he did not, and we are very thankful for that. And a friend of mine, he was not so lucky. And his child decided that they wanted to do band, and he sent updates of the concert, which is really brilliant if you think about it, because you can play it off to your wife like you're recording wonderful moments of your family, and really you just send them then to your friends to commiserate with your experience. So really, you've got both sides like covered there. It's genius. Remember that. But he was sending these out, and then he posted some on social media, and we know each other. Like, if there's a train wreck, I've just got to see it. So I watched it a couple times, which adjusted my social media algorithm to thinking I wanted to watch band videos. And the next one that popped up on my feed was of a college band. Now, the difference could not have been more drastic. It could not have been more drastic. And that's true of anything in life. Malcolm Gladwell suggested it takes 10,000 hours of repetition of doing something over and over and over again until you become proficient and really become an expert at that activity. And certainly when you hand a child an instrument, they are not going to, there are prodigies, but most are not going to be capable of doing at that point in their life what they will grow and develop and be able to accomplish and do in every aspect, in every area of our life really is that way. But when you looked at them back to back, there was no comparison. No comparison in what a middle school band sounded like and what a college band sounded like. They just couldn't even compare. And today, as we continue our look at the transformation that God does within us and the work that He does after we make the decision to follow after Jesus and how He changes us and molds us and transforms us, what we're going to see is there is no comparison. There is no comparison to the things that we focus on and the way that we live our lives and the great things that are to come. If you have your phones or your tablets, I'd invite you to follow along with us this morning in the Bible app. It's a free resource that you can find in whatever app store you utilize. Once you've installed the Bible app on your device, the feature that we use together every week is called Events. When you go to the Events tab, either enable your locations or write in Lakeside, Algoma will pop up and you can follow along with us that way. If you have a traditional Bible with you this morning, we're continuing our look at a section of the book of Romans. This morning we're going to start in Romans chapter 8, verse 18. If you're joining us via the stream this morning, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Brian and I'm part of the team here at Lakeside, and the verses will be available for you on the screen below as we continue our look at the transformation that God does within us after we make the decision to follow Jesus, how He brings us to become more and more like Him, and the ramifications that has in our lives. Romans 8, verse 18, we read these words, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." Let me read this again. "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." So right off the bat, what we see the Apostle Paul reminding us of is this: The best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. The best is yet to come in our lives as God continues to mold us and shape us and change us. The best is yet to come as God's plan continues to unfold. And in a time where we look around us and we say, what is going on in the world in which we live? This has to permeate our minds and our hearts. And this needs to be at the forefront where we are reminded over and over and over again that no matter the chaos, God is still in control. That God has a plan and He is in control, and the best is yet to come. And here's what else we need to remember. At the same time that we're told the best is yet to come, we're also told that there are present what? Sufferings. That there are present sufferings. And somewhere along the line, we've allowed it to creep into our minds and into our psyche. God, if I follow you, you are obligated to make everything in my life perfect and easy and okay. And as long as you do that, I feel like you're holding up to your end of a bargain that you never really made, but I still want to hold you accountable to. And I'm happy when that happens. But anytime where trouble or hardship seems to come in our lives, what do? We start to question, God, where are you? God, are you good? God, what are you doing? And here we're told that the best is yet to come. And we're also told that there are present sufferings. The reminder for those of us who love and follow Jesus is this: that we need to be very intentional and we need to be very careful about what we affix our attention to. I'll never forget my senior year of high school. We had something called block scheduling. So you had classes for 90 minutes, but you only took 4 classes at a time. Supposedly it was to get you ready for college. So you had this block scheduling. Now, the only problem was there are certain required classes that you had to take. One of them was American history. So senior year, what happens? All fall, everyone who's going to college applies to the colleges that they want to go to. And they get accepted. They get accepted to the college that they want to go to. What happens around Thanksgiving break for most of the people going into the trades? They start to line up apprenticeships. They start to line up apprenticeships or even entry-level work for the summer. Fast forward to our school scheduling system. The end of January is when the semester starts, and all of a sudden, you have a class full of people in American history who've already been accepted to college and have already lined up the job that they're going to take when school's over. And you have a teacher standing in front of the class telling everybody, this is very important because you need this to pass school. And what we all know at this point in time is D's get degrees, okay? D's get degrees at this point. We have already been accepted to college, okay? Maybe before you get accepted, C's get degrees. Once you're in, D's get degrees. And nobody's ever going to ask you your GPA. And so all you've got to do is figure out what that D- level is. You hit that D-, and this does not derail your future at all. And a whole class of people know this. It was fantastic. It was a great class to be a part of. It was wonderful. Why? Because our attention was on the right thing. Now, some of you who are history teachers were like, no, it wasn't. But for the rest of us, we're like, yeah, it was. What we recognize is this class is kind of important. But ultimately, our ultimate destination has already been determined. And all we've got to do is figure out how to survive so that we get to the place where we will thrive. And some of the angst is somewhere along the way we've thought, well, this is the place that I've got to thrive. This is the place that everything has to be perfect. And if we read the book, what we know is this is the place where everything is not going to be perfect. And this is a place where Jesus told us, don't be surprised when you face opposition. I faced opposition. If you follow after me, people are going to treat you and respond to you the same way that they treated and responded to me. And so if you find yourself weary and exhausted, I just want to remind you that God is still in control. He still has a plan. I promise it's bigger and better than the plan you're thinking of in your head. Take solace in that fact. What does it mean, the glory that is to be revealed to us? Well, I'll tell you that in a little bit. Verse 19, for the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. What we see is that creation is longing for the very same thing that so many of us are longing for. That we look around this beautiful world and creation itself is longing, it's desperately wanting God's redemption. In the same way that we look around and say, I can't believe the things that are going on. So does creation. So does that which God spoke into existence. And then we go to an even deeper level of this idea and this concept in verses 20 and 21. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Now, what in the world is the Apostle Paul getting at here? We have to go back to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 1, God creates everything, and it's great. Genesis chapter 2 focuses really on the creation of humanity. Genesis chapter 3, we mess it all up. That's the summation of the first 3 chapters of Genesis. And the result of us rebelling against God's standard and messing everything that he created up, there are consequences. And one aspect of that, they're called the curse. One aspect of the curse was put on creation itself, on the physical universe, which means as incredible and marvelous as this world is, it's a shell of what it was originally designed to be. I want you to really think through that. Because really, in the last 6 weeks alone, two events have captured our collective attention. We had the northern lights of last week. We had some of you were very lucky. You went outside and you saw them. Some of you went to bed 5 minutes before it happened, and you're still mad about it. And you're like, oh, that's so nice that you saw them and you took pictures and you posted on social media. I hate you. You know? But that's some of you are like, this is a quest, and you saw it. You can't describe that. That's incredible. You go back 5-6 weeks. Schools canceled school for an eclipse. Businesses shut down to watch. Don't get me wrong. What we see footage of that was incredible. I mean, here it was kind of cloudy. It looked like a rainy day. But, in other places, absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. 2 events in the last 5 to 6 weeks that have captured our collective attention in a world that is a shell of what it was originally designed and created to be. And we want to try to figure out the glory and the majesty and the plans and the heart and the mind of God, our Creator. If this is what we see in a world that is still suppressed under a curse and a shell of what it is, and here we're told that the world longs to be what it once was. It longs to be what it was fully created to be. to be outside of the curse in the same way that we long for things, that we long to no longer be constrained, and we long for a day where no longer sickness and death and destruction and decay are in the equation. And the hope for us is that God is faithful, even though we are not, and He is good, even though we rebelled against Him, and He very much has a plan in store where one day He will come and He will restore everything and make all things new, and we will live forever with Him as we were originally designed and created to be, where sin and death and the curse is no more. And the same way that the world longs for that day, so should we. And instead of being full of angst, and instead of being frightened when we look at everything that's going on, we need to redirect our focus, and we need to make sure that we are people full of hope of what's to come, because of God and His plan. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. Let me read those two verses again, verses 22 and 23. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. Now, groaning in the pains of childbirth is a picture of a prolonged labor experience. This isn't one of the groans that you get in labor that's an hour. We're talking intense labor, goes on a couple days. The doctors are like, hey, we're going to have to intervene here soon if the baby doesn't come. Just that prolonged pain and angst and anguish that's seemingly unrelenting. As the contractions and the pain comes over and over and over again. And creation groans in this experience. And notice, so does our spirit. So does our spirit as we live in a place that's full of brokenness, in a place that's flawed, in a place that's imperfect, in a place that sells us dreams that aren't always realized, in a place that offers us relationships and love, only to find out that sometimes those things don't last, in a place that seemingly steals our kids and makes us wonder what happened when they were so happy and joyful and full of life. And now they wander aimlessly. In a place that makes us look at our own brokenness, our own imperfections, and see how we miss the mark that we would set for ourselves. That in the same way creation groans and it longs for something better, so too do our spirits, so too do we. And this is the answer to verse 18. Because right now our bodies aren't always aligned with our spiritual desires. This is the battle, the dance that we've talked about for a few weeks now. That the Spirit of God calls us and guides us and directs us, and yet so often we just want to go in a different direction. And we groan because we know that tension. We know that struggle. We know the direction we ought to go, and yet we know frequently the direction that we want to go. Because these bodies are not aligned with our spiritual desires. And yet, the hope is that there is coming a time where we will be fully aligned with the desires that we know are best. The mandates that God has put forward what He has called us to do. And when we get our resurrected bodies, there will no longer be this dance. There will no longer be this battle. We will be delivered once and for all. There will be no more dual nature or tension between temptation and following God's direction. It will just occur. And perhaps this is a glimpse of what we see every spring. As what was dead and barren springs forward into new life. Then what were just branches, life blooms. Flowers and vegetation burst forth from the barren. And God has a plan and a purpose for each of us. For in this hope we were saved. Now, hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what he sees? And we have this hope. We have this hope that God is not complete in His work. God is not complete in His work in us. God is not complete in His work or on this world. And what I mean by that is not that God is lacking something, but that God's full plan has not yet been brought to fruition. That there is still an aspect of waiting and longing, and the time is not yet. But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. We wait for it with patience. And I know that can be incredibly difficult when seemingly everything is spinning out of control. I know that can be difficult when your world is crashing down. I know that can be difficult when you're just frustrated with yourself and the same mistakes that you've made over and over and over again. And all of these things can be hard. And yet, what are we told? Don't lose hope. And the best way to not lose hope is to remember what we need to place our hope in. God has a plan. He has a purpose. We don't know exactly how that plan will unfold. We don't always know the direction His purpose is going to take. But I promise you this: He will not fail you. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we do not know what to pray for as we ought. But the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. So notice what else is going on, because this is fascinating. This is fascinating. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. The Spirit helps us in our weakness. I know some of you live in a gym. This might surprise you when you look at my biceps. I do not, okay? This is just natural, no HGH needed, all right? Now, some of you, I don't know why somebody's laughing. I mean, these are massive. Eat your heart out, Hulk Hogan. All right. Now, some of you live in a gym, and you love to work out. And so, I mean, the amounts of weight that you can bench are truly impressive. If I were to go to the gym and I were to try to bench press, I would not feel very comfortable doing a certain weight. Let's say 300 pounds. I think up to 300 I'd be all right. But once I hit 300, I would probably want a spotter. Just for the gym owner to feel okay. So let's say I try to bench 300 pounds. Again, I'm not sure why people are laughing. Now, if I bench 300 pounds, first, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it, off the bar it's resting on. But if I get it up, that weight is coming down. And I can try all day long to push that weight up. The reality is that isn't going to be possible for me. Now, some of you live in the gym. And 300 pounds for you, that's a milestone you can crush. You can crush easily. Maybe for you it's 450. But there is going to come a point in time where you can't lift it. Some of you are going to struggle with the bar. I mean, if Jacob Bowder went to a gym, couldn't even get the bar up, all right? Just saying, he's pretty weak. Now here's the point. As you continue to walk with Jesus, there are going to be things that you experience. Sometimes, if you've been walking with Jesus and growing with Him, you're going to have a higher capacity to do things. You're going to encounter temptation. You're going to encounter things that would have destroyed you long ago, but no longer will. You're going to encounter circumstances and situations that would have broken you, but now you can get through. But there is going to come a point for all of us where we reach this thing that we can't carry and we can't lift. And what we're told here is that the Spirit of God at work within us takes over at that time. That He is our spotter. And that where we groan and where the world groans, because we have not yet realized all that God has in store for us, the Spirit of God groans for us because He wants to grow us, and He wants to change us, and He wants to shape us, and He wants to develop us, and He wants to make us more and more like the image of God. And when we find something that is too heavy for us to lift, that is too heavy for us to carry, the Spirit of God intercedes on our behalf. So you might find yourself today laying on that bench with the weight of the world across your chest. You might think to yourself, there is no way I can carry on. There is no way I can lift this. This is my breaking point. And I just want to remind you that if you're a follower of Jesus, you have never been alone. And you are never meant to try to carry everything by yourself. If you're like, but Brian, I don't even know where to start. The good news for us is we don't have to. The Spirit does. And the invitation for all of us is to just remember that when we are too weak, God's got us. And He who searches hearts knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. The Spirit searches our hearts. He searches our hearts. And what does He do? What do you search for? Well, most of the time I search for my wallet or keys. And that's because I don't remember where I put them. And I always ask Brooke, my wife, I'm like, hey, do you know where my wallet or keys are? Like, this is going to be the time she actually moved them. She doesn't, but I always feel like I should ask just in case. Her answer is always, not sure. Yesterday, there was a small disaster at the Pursley home. Her son went to a birthday party, which was great. But you know how birthday parties go. A lot of fun, a lot of sugar, a lot of food, and then ship them back home. And so that's what happened, and he didn't have a lot of sleep the night before. And he decided that he wanted a certain toy. Now, I have not seen this toy in months. I've not seen that toy in months. He has not played with that toy in maybe years or months. Either way, it's been a really long time. But all of a sudden, my hyped up on sugar and adrenaline child decided he wanted to find that toy. And he looked in 2 spots. And the toy was not there. Now, my wife and I, we've been blessed with 2 boys. And my wife is magic because I've told you her abilities before, that she will tell me to look for something in the fridge, and it is not in there. And I close the fridge door, and then when she opens it, it appears. Now, the item was not in the fridge when I looked, okay? It's some David Blaine, David Copperfield stuff. I don't know, but she's got the ability. The boys take a little more after me. Might be genetic, I don't know. But he was not happy that he could not find his toy. And so what did we do? Well, at first, nothing, because he didn't ask. And then he's like, can I get some help? And I'm like, can you ask nicely? And then when he asked nicely, I helped him look for a bit. We own that toy. I still don't know where it is. But the Spirit finds hidden, forgotten things in our hearts and in our lives. See, the thing is, as we continue to walk with Jesus, He reveals to us things that sometimes are in our past that we've forgotten about. He reveals to us things that are in our present that don't always come to the forefront of our hearts and our minds. And by the way, this isn't always just to convict us. Sometimes it's to hearten us, to encourage us, to remind us, to bring us hope. God searches our hearts, and He knows what's in our minds. And that's the Spirit that carries us when we're too weak. I know it can be frightening. I know when you look at the world around us, you shake your head. And we all know the next 6 months are just going to be a disaster and a half. And people are going to try to be pitted against each other, and battle lines are going to be drawn, and one candidate's going to say the future's in jeopardy if you don't elect me, and the other's going to say the exact same thing, and the other's like, hey, will you just invite me to the debate? And they're going to both agree on that and say no, and that'll be the only thing they agree on, but then they're going to say for you, you've got to pick a side. And if our side doesn't win, there's no hope. But if our side wins, we can restore things or we can keep things as they should be. And what I'm going to tell you is this. We have hope. And it's not in the platform of a political party. It's not in who's elected president. It's in the fact that as beautiful and incredible as this world can be, and as wonderful as this life can be, the best is yet to come. And when it's hard, and when it's challenging, and when it feels like it's too much, and we're trapped, we can rest, knowing that that is the time that God will continue to carry us. And when we don't even know where to begin, He will take over the process. God, I pray that we would be people who don't lose heart and don't lose hope. I pray, God, that we would keep our eyes and our focus on You. And God, that we truly would live our lives with the confidence that the best is yet to come. God, help us. As we walk through life, we face challenges and uncertainty and difficulty. Rest in the fact that You are right there in the midst of those circumstances. That we aren't meant or called to carry it alone. God, I pray that You would sustain us and You would help us. And we would take heart in the fact that when we reach our breaking point, when it is too much, that You carry us. God, I pray for the people right now who are frustrated, who are angry, who are bitter, who are hopeless, who are hurting, who are at their breaking point, who are tired, who are ready to quit, who've given up, who want to stop. And I pray that Your Spirit would pierce their hearts right now. God, I pray that they would be reminded that we were never meant to walk through this life alone. They would lean into Your power. And God, if they're too broken and they're too tired and they're too weak, that they would just let You carry them. Work in us and through us, Jesus, for Your glory, we ask. In Your name.